Hey there again. This is the Get Warped podcast, and like I said in our last episode, ended up being this is a three-parter talking about ghosts and ghosts in general, but ghosts of the past, ghosts on the silver screen, ghosts from our own family stories, experiencing ghosts. On this one, we'll be introducing is Evan Jordan, filmmaker, writer-director of Florida Man, which premiered this past month at the Unnamed Footage Fest Year 9. A movie that I'm proud to be part of as a producer through Warp Visions, which is the producers of this podcast, as well as the programming that happens at the Balboa and other TBA projects. But it's also, I think, a way that Evan and I talk about our families and our experiences around ghosts. And of course, just like in the movie, in Florida Man, you'll get to, is a lot of talk about Ouija boards, a lot about communicating, opening that phone book, dialing a bunch of numbers, and seeing what happens. So, this is part 2 of Get Warped's Ghosts episode. And again, we'll be back at a certain point talking specifically about more cases about ghosts, ghost films, what have you. I try to also infuse with every, as we do, it's not just about, movies, music, books, but those are kind of our jumping off point, but our experiences individually. And so for this one, definitely get into some real heavy, personal, passionate, storytelling, or as Evan likes to say, the oral traditions, which is very true, about talking about ghosts of the past, stories about ghosts, and those experiences. And also, how this man, Evan Jordan, might be really haunted by ghosts and is cursed by ghosts after what he did during Florida Man. So stick around. This is episode 2, or really part 2, of Get Warped Ghosts. Well, hey everybody. We are back, and we're talking about ghosts. Kai and I just talked about some ghosts, feeling some ghosts, experiencing some ghosts. Hey, I've always wanted to see a ghost, and that's one particular thing. I have been energy sensitive my whole life, as we've talked about earlier in this episode. But I've met a man who definitely fucked around with some ghosts, and I think he's still learning his lesson. Evan Jordan, the filmmaker and man that convinced me to give him a few $1,000s to make a movie of the feature film Florida Man. Evan Jordan, welcome to the Get Warped podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude. Hopefully you still feel like it was a good idea by the time we're done with this whole thing.
You know what? I said this, it's funny. I remember the day I said it, and I was like, this is where I'm going to start having regrets. It was like 5 years ago. I was like, I don't really have any regrets. It's like after COVID, we survived that. I was like, you know what? I actually, definitely there's always life difficulties and all these things. You never know what to expect. Probably try to stay in the present, but how can you not when your present might be like, hey, I just need to look forward to something in the future. And now we are in the future. And I remember saying, I don't have any regrets to some people about some life at a job that I had teaching. And then after that, I'm like, man, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, you didn't have any regrets then, but it
I know
could happen.
And that's before I met you. It's it was 2022. I think we met did we meet in 2022 or 2023? I think 2022.
Whatever year the UF6 was, the sixth.
That was 2022, I believe. Yeah, because 2023, I remember the next year I was like, man, I lost my job, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna sell these VHS.
I think
tapes.
it was.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, 2022. Yeah, because I remember talking to you. I tend to at the festival. You can mostly find me in the lobby or on the sidewalk. I tend to I love the social aspect of it. I live in a fucking shed, dude. So when I get to the festival, I want to talk to people.
The boy has come down from the mountain and wants to engage.
That's right. That's right. So I caught you. I was chilling, working the main merch table there at UF, and you were doing your VHS thing that year, and we sat there and talked about movies for a long time, all days.
This is before the VHS. This is before. This was a year before.
Was
I
it?
I was just a spectator. It was me and Laser
Okay.
Craig just coming in,
Oh
hanging
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the year that I was like, you know what? Like, it's a year back. I'm just glad to see people. I was repping the Warp Dimension TV. We were doing the online show that was at like probably at its like peak. And so yeah,
Okay.
that's we were just kind of scouting the scene, which ever since every year after I'm like, Laser Craig, where are you? And
I feel like the lobby year though was the year we really bonded. You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes,
Like we
that's
met each
that's
other the year before, but we really
yeah,
like got to know each other, like
yeah. I was a
chilling in
des
the lobby talking shop.
I was a desperate man that year, so I had to make
dude,
desperate friends.
there were a lot of moments where it was just us in that fucking lobby for quite a while.
Oh
Everybody was
man,
locked into movies, so
yep. I know. I was just like, I gotta sell these tapes, man. I lost my job. Like, what's going on? This whole world's going AWOL. I thought I survived. We survived the pandemic. No, what they saying? So, yes, indeed. So, and then, and I, always engaged. That definitely we're all filmmakers, especially in the unnamed footage world. Even though some of us come off as like, I'm just here as a fan.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
You're like, yeah, we all want to make a movie, and Russell and I on our the Bebo Theater podcast talk about budgets and how
Yeah,
it's essentially like what's the beauty thing about found footage is you kind of just make it up as you go, or you say,
right.
hey, we didn't use it wasn't made on a lot of money, but it's also forgiven because then you're acknowledging the process this whole thing. And you went and made a home video and came back. Well, the first half, I don't want to know how much you want to give away too much. The first half to me is very much like this is you, Evan Jordan. Then the second half is when you start fucking around with ghosts.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's too much, but I think that's where
No, I
really the
think that's
movie,
cool. The second half is the horror movie part of
yeah,
it,
and it kicks in. And I still think after watching this rough cut. I've not seen the final cut yet, which
Right.
I'm still waiting to have all the ghosts come back and kill you, or you admit that you've been killing everyone this whole time,
I
including
show you all the bodies.
poor Mr. Bill. I still want to know what happened,
Oh,
what was
dude,
going on
poor
there.
Bill.
Um, and so, but ghosts. Tell me a little about the experience as a child. Did you experience any? Did you want to see some? Like, for example, I always wanted to see a ghost. I thought I saw them as a kid. And then, of course, I was like, oh, no, it's just me messing with it. And then, like, my parents, particularly my mom and my grandmother, maternally, like, very energy sensitive people. Sometimes they also been like, I don't know how much you know, their energies are sensitive, but how much ghosts they actually saw. Like, I remember my grandmother
Right.
talking to her dead daughter. Like, she would have conversations with her, things like that. But, I'd also be like, I don't know. Like, it's just my grandma in a room just talking to herself. So,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
on that end. So.
I've always I've always so first of all, growing up as a young child, probably since I was since as long as I can remember, probably 4 or 5, whenever you can start retaining actual memories, and like remembering what happens. I remember my grandpa saying, and they lived in the same, excuse me, I'm drinking beer here, the same house that we go to in the end of the film. They lived there as long as I've been alive. And so as a kid, my grandpa would always talk about, oh, there's a ghost that lives in here. I see, there he is right there and stuff. And like, as a kid, I never got the vibe that my grandpa was like afraid of it. It was just a thing that was, like he just talked about it as if it was just a thing that was part of life. Like,
Yeah.
oh
Part
yeah,
of
there's
the
a ghost
family.
here. Yeah.
Part of the family. Because it's
And
interesting, yeah. Because like, did he saw them, or he just felt them, or what
he
was
says he saw it. I never
Yeah,
saw it when I was that little.
yeah,
Now, so fast forward a few years when I was in like second grade. At the end of second grade, we moved. My dad worked in the oil field, so he worked for Exxon, and we moved a good bit. So we moved to Kansas first, and then to Wyoming after that. And when we got to Wyoming, I think I was in like 5th grade or something like that. I started having like crazy night terrors, and I had those for several years in middle school. And they finally, like, I would wake up and sleepwalk and like be like crying or screaming and stuff, but I'm asleep while I'm walking around the house. And like I'd go to my parents' room and wake them up sometimes during it, but while I'm waking them up or while I'm doing these things, I wasn't like, I'm fully asleep while it's happening. And but then I don't really know why, but that just kind of went away at some point. We moved to Colorado. But then after I graduated high school, I moved back to Florida because my uncle Wayne, who is talked about a lot in the movie, he got leukemia, and so he had an exotic bird farm there where there was, like thousands of parrots, parakeets, all different kinds of exotic birds, and he had like a wholesale distribution business where he would sell them to like the distribution companies who would then
Mhm.
get them into like Petco or PetSmart or wherever they would end up, pet stores. And so when I moved back as an adult, that's where I first started like kind of seeing the different shit going on at the house and noticing it for myself. And I think that's the first time it ever had like a sinister vibe to it for me too. Like it didn't, like I said, when I was a kid, I didn't really think much of it. It was just something my grandpa talked about. But when we moved back, all kinds of weird shit happened. And I actually opened Florida Man. I won't tell the story here. I don't want to ruin it. But I opened Florida Man with a story about a thing that happens at my window that was perhaps the scariest thing that I ever, went through while I was there. But a lot of little things happened. Like stuff would go missing around the house. And nobody, you would ask, and it's just us there. It's me, my grandparents, and my uncle. And something would be moved or missing, and then you'd find it in a weird place or never again. For example, my uncle came in my room one night and accused me of stealing the meatloaf out of the fridge. And I was like, I didn't eat the fucking meatloaf, dude. Like I wouldn't lie to you about this. It's meatloaf, like I would tell you the truth here. And the very next day we're about to go out to take care of the birds, and as we're walking across the yard, the empty bowl comes rolling off the roof of the house. Like, makes no fucking sense. How the fuck? What? Like,
Well, well, also I think, and something I think that definitely drew me to your story quite a bit as a producer is that you had a very heavy addiction issue going on at this time as well. So that's something
I
I
did
feel like, you're opening up things that are maybe in your mind not quite there, but also you are extra sensitive to other influence and stuff like that. So
for sure.
yeah, on that end, you
Yeah,
want
it did. Like, I would say that some of that stuff started. Like, I think the window thing happened before I was like on meth. For full disclosure, that's the
to,
drug I was addicted to. Uh, but then if I will say you're right. I think the weird shit got weirder and worse when I was, like full blown addict mode. Like because I obviously I was also going days on end without going to sleep. So I was half delirious as well as. So you do get in a weird state of mind where I think you're more sensitive to, you know,
yeah. No, I
kind
think
of
that's
otherworldly things like that.
yeah. I mean, it's also it's that connection of I think you're near a sort of paranormal like realm at well times too. Like everyone I've talked to
Yeah,
who's had ghosts encounters, usually there's always the two things that define it: major trauma and trauma that's coped by drug addiction. And so it's like,
yeah,
but then also people who had drug addiction and then were like, hey, didn't think of anything afterwards, got clean. And it's like, man, now I like feel everything. And it's just like,
yeah.
super extra on that
There
end.
is a weird, I, I think at some point during the addiction part of it, I stopped being afraid of it and started being like more curious. And I don't know if it was the delirium I was experiencing or
Yeah.
what, if I was more connected or what, but
Yeah.
and I
Well,
think I do still have that feel. Like I think you'll see when people see the movie, they'll notice that like I think I'm not nearly as afraid at the place just because I know it and I've been there for one. It's like
yeah.
a completely new and strange and dark and creepy place to Sophia, who's there with me. But
Who I
uh,
still don't know if she's a ghost or not. That's I'm still wondering to this day.
well, she should be here this year at the festival. So
Should is the word also. But you mentioned something about it being more sinister too, and I think that's something that like for me as a kid, like I thought that was oh man, ghosts are scary. Like
right,
what's gonna happen, or is that someone trying to break in? Like it's very in the streets. And then as I gotten older, and then just looking back on my own childhood and all these things, I've lightened up to it more. I'm like, oh okay, like could be. Or a lot of times I have dreams of like I'm being possessed by some entity, and then I wake up like,
yeah,
oh, it's just a dream. But then talking to like we have our expert Kai here who on the Get Warp podcast who like talks about how it's like, oh yeah, his experience, and with the paranormal and paranormal, ghost searchers, ghost hunters, it's that
right,
essentially it's more curiosity and it's like, oh, not all ghosts are really like sinister, out to get you, gonna grab you, poltergeist status, and suck you into the
Right.
TV or the closet kind of thing. Like it's not so much the boogeyman, but then
Yeah.
it could go verse, it could go reverse kind of thing like that.
That's well, see, and that's where I was at in my head is like, oh, it's
Yeah.
not the boogeyman kind of thing until the window stuff happened that night, and then all the weird shit followed, and I started. But like I said, I got in the throes of addiction not long after, and I don't think the stuff that was happening stopped feeling any less sinister as much as when I was in the throes of addiction. You're kind of when you're in that, you're also just in a dark place mentally, almost always. You know,
Hmm.
that's how you get there. So you kind of I don't know. It's still sinister, but you stop being as afraid of it. You almost become more curious about it. You like because your senses are all fucked up. You know,
Yeah.
like I
Well,
remember calling my friend Charlie and being like, I see people in my yard in the middle of the night and stuff, and he's like, I don't know what's real anymore, dude. He's like, I don't know how long you've been awake, you know, and like I don't know
mm,
if what you're telling me is something you're just seeing because you've been up for this. He's like, I don't. It probably is, but like I was in a bad place for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, but then it's interesting is that like as your story is like you clean up, you have a life of your own, but then, as life goes, it always goes to shit.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Shit
it's
happens,
interesting,
dude.
you come back and you're sober having this experience, but then you were talking to a lot of people about they're like, "Hey, there's ghosts out here. Maybe you don't want to be opening up those doors." I think that's that a lot of people you talk to in this have mentioned quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
like Ivy, one of the ladies we talked to, tells a story
Yeah.
about like a local kind of entity that a bunch of people have kind of like this almost folk legend sort of tales about, you know, where they see it in the woods or they see it at cemeteries. And so yeah, there's definitely, and it's interesting. I think like Kurt, for example, Kurt Floyd is my great uncle, super country guy that we interview. So country, in fact, that he has to be subtitled of all the people we interview because I
Mm.
don't think people could understand him without the subtitles. But he's one of the few people who was like the opposite, where he was like, you know, nothing. I never experienced anything out there and everything. The thing is, he was always fucked up. Kurt was. He was went to prison for making moonshine and everything. So it's weird to me that I don't know if he just doesn't remember or if he never experienced anything. But you're right. Every single other person I think that we talked to had some sort of supernatural story, you know,
Yeah.
of some sort.
And then here you come with the Walmart Parker Brothers board. and and then all of a
Amazon,
sudden,
Amazon,
oh,
shout out.
Amazon. Yeah, it's from Amazon. They made it out that way. Well,
I had to get the classic. I had to get the wooden. I couldn't get one of these folding cardboard ones. You know, I had to get the wooden one. I had to get
Oh,
the
it's a
old
wooden
school
one.
Parker
Yeah.
Brothers. Yeah,
I
yeah.
do love the poster that you got the eyepiece. You got the
Oh yeah,
what
on
is
the
it
Unnamed
called? What is
Footage
that?
Festival, the planchette.
The planchette. Where's
Yeah,
that from? Sounds like a
right.
sounds like
I
a
fuck it up in the movie. I say the wrong thing one time
oh,
before I say dial once because it is dial
dial.
shaped.
This
You know,
dial. This
and
dial over here.
it is weird. I don't think I told this story in the film, or if I did, it got cut. But my uncle had a Ouija board story that he told me when I was living there, where so my uncle used to do. He's always been an animal guy, and that's explored in Florida, man, quite a bit. But he moved to New York for a little while, and he did like show horse stuff up there and dressage and everything. And he had a friend who was living in the like loft of the barn where they had the arena and kept all the horses and stuff, who like took care of the horses. And she had some weird ass experiences there where so it all began when they started playing with the Ouija board. Though Wayne and a bunch of his friends came out there because the barn always felt weird to them and everything, and they'd find footprints in the in the thing where after they had like raked in the arena and there's footprints, so nobody had been out there, just weird shit. So like we should do a Ouija board, and they did, and it apparently it worked like hardcore, like it moved instantly when they started talking to it and stuff, and so they kept doing it, and eventually it started saying shit that kind of freaked them out when they would ask it stuff. And so they were like, maybe we shouldn't, you know, we shouldn't fuck with this anymore. And they started getting a little more leery and using it a little less. But the tipping point for them was she woke up one night and there was some sort of like black silhouette like in her closet telling her to come here, come here. And the next day she told him about it, and Wayne and their friends are like, well, we should do it one last time and then let's quit and see if we can see what that was. And so they do it one last time, and apparently during this whole thing, the things told him their name was like AZ or some shit like that. And then at some point it said "bad burn me" on the Ouija board. It spelled that out, and they didn't ask questions. They lit it on fire. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I was in AZ is exactly the alphabet backwards and forwards. So
Yeah, it went back
yeah.
and forth between the
Yeah.
AZ and the AZ. So I don't know what
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a demon or what the
Well,
fuck that is. But
and that's something that like Kai and I talked about earlier on about how when they had a paranormal investigation in LA and they met this ghost and they had this person come out, this woman had seen like, oh, in this alleyway like these two men fighting, but they were in a different like clothing, like in the 70s.
oh
And then she's
shit,
like, "Hey, did she says, like, does anyone have a Ouija board?" And they're like, "Oh, someone was playing around." I was like, "Yeah, well, that's like opening up the phone book, or now anyways, like contacts, whatever, your Facebook thing, and just doing like Russian roulette, like dialing a bunch of numbers just to see
right?
who's gonna come in." And that opens doors. And so that's like a big thing is I've always like said, yeah, there's like you're definitely gonna open doors. You may not get those doors that you want opened, but you're gonna
Right.
open to some places. You're gonna have people just show up, and
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, it's gonna not be people, on that end. But one thing I always find interesting, and I even talked about this, is that why is it always someone from a long time ago they see ghosts? It's not like a new ghost. It's not like a hey,
Yeah.
I saw that guy. He had, he had modern shoes, modern dress.
Yeah. What about the dude who died last year? Like, why
Like
isn't he
someone
here?
who fell off a Super Bowl party 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
and still has, is still an Eagles fan.
Yeah.
It's like
Exactly.
it's interesting. Is that what do you think your thoughts are on that? Why is it always old? It's something old from like 100+ years on
I
that.
don't know, and because there's so many different theories on like
Yeah,
spirits and what exactly they are, and since it isn't like there's no like hard science to prove exactly what any of it is, it's
that's
like
the paranormal.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think it really is a lot of times maybe just manifestations of what you're afraid of or what you're I don't know.
yeah,
I don't really know if I have a good theory on that, but that's what makes sense to me is like
yeah,
what you but I think the contradictory thing there is a lot of times people see or experience the same thing at a place, so I don't know.
yeah.
It is strange though that it's always some little girl in a 1920s dress or some fucking guy smoking a pipe. It's like, yeah, why doesn't he have a TV remote or like a,
Yeah. And well, the other thing too is there's always got to be like a tragic story that someone is stuck
yeah,
somewhere. It's not like just like again, Eagles fan guy like fell off a balcony 2 years
right,
ago and like and now he's just haunting this apartment complex because he can't get out,
yeah,
kind of thing. Or yeah, it's like it's interesting on that level. But also I mean, Los Angeles, particularly, that's where a lot of our stories talk with Kai. It's like, I mean, LA, especially 100 years ago, was kind of known for like kind of dead end Skid Row, Cecil Hotel, several
right,
places where people, yeah, definitely like it was the end of the road. Tragedies happen, things like that. So, I mean, I think it's all part of storytelling too, which is a big thing. It's like we want something to be more interesting because really that's the odd thing about life is that, it's like things happen, things will get exciting. There'll be moments like a movie because we've watched a lot of movies, but it's really not like really that like, oh man, like, and then this happened, and then, and I
yeah,
was, like, in some ways, like The Exorcist, the first half kind of approaches it very pragmatically. The original,
sure,
possession,
yeah,
which is different. Ghosts, some people get mixed up with ghosts, like possessions, poltergeists, all these things. Sometimes it all happens, but most of the time, people when
right,
they experience ghosts, it's just they just see an apparition
right,
of some sort.
yeah. And see, in
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
the thing we talked to in Florida, I always call it the thing because I don't know what the fuck it is. Like it's I don't know if it's a ghost or if it's a poltergeist, if it's a demon. I don't know what the fuck it is, but it's
yeah.
you know it's
It's fucking
there's
with you.
something there. Yeah,
It's probably AZA. Your uncle opened it up and then he reawoken
yeah. I don't know
it.
if it followed him or what. Yeah, what
It
happened there? But
reawoken.
apparently
Fucking
the lighter exploded when they went to go burn. The first lighter exploded when they went to go burn the boards. So who
yeah.
knows?
Oh, burning boards. Uh-oh. Gotta burn it all. Then that'll solve everything, right? No, no, no. It's just like, didn't you see then when Ghostbusters third act happens, they shut it all down, it just blows up. Yeah, that really solved everything. Burning a haunted object really solved everything. Um, but I think that's interesting on that level. I mean, it's like I've always wanted to experience a ghost. I know that the Balboa Theater has a ghost. I've heard many times. Maybe you'll meet the ghost. He'll
Maybe
be
so.
like, be
Yeah.
like, yeah,
And
he'll be a big.
I'll bring some of the gear we used or something, and we'll
Oh
see if
no.
we can find that thing, dude.
we got yeah, it's like they're really big. They'll see if you're a fan of Florida Man or not, and then
Yeah.
then you'll get approval. But I've actually never seen a ghost or experienced. I just say energy sensitive like moments, but as I've gotten older, I'm always like, "Oh, it'll be cool to see one," and I'm like, "That's why I won't see one." So,
Yeah, I don't. It's weird because I wanted to back and explore that because the reason. Let's start with, I guess, the whole way the movie started. The conception of the idea was just a late night phone call between me and Sophia where I was literally just telling her all of this stuff. Like I was just telling her about my life. We were still getting to know each other, and she's like, "This sounds like like a movie. Like this is crazy, all the shit that you've been through and like that's happened in your life." And I was like, "Well, we could make it, Like I don't really like I was gonna do murky and it just didn't really things didn't pan out great with that. So I was just like, well, let's do it. Why not? So that's sort of why we went into the movie the way we did too, with no script or anything, as much as just an outline of people. We shot it just like a doc where we just had an interview list, we had a location list, we knew where we were going to go and what we were going to do, but we didn't know what everyone was going to say. So that's part of also why we ended up with between 35 and 40 hours of footage, is because we just shot everything
mhm.
basically. But
I still think Sophia's a ghost. I think that's the apparition that will come to. I'll even say it in the Q&A. I'm like, I don't think she's real. I think this is something's going on here. Well, something I also want to touch upon is that it would intrigue me, especially with the title. Funny enough, it came out like what 6 months before It's Florida Man became
hmm
a thing on HBO, which I thought
yep.
that was hilarious.
Yeah,
But I
you
always
hit me
say,
up and you're
yeah.
like, "Hey, HBO stole your title."
Yeah. I was like, hey, well, I always liked it Florida, comma, man. And then it just kind of I'm always a fan of punctuations and messing with titles kind of thing. Never like
It changes it. It adds something to it.
but not like this like long asterisk, like
Sure.
Doctor Strange's
Doctor
Hollywood,
Strangelove, yeah.
And I'm like, well, that one it's a satire. It's supposed to be the ridiculousness, but it's like
Right.
I remember some people would come up to me like years ago and be like, oh, what about this title? And it's just like, can you make it 3 words? Can you make it
Or
four
it's a
words?
what is it? It's a mad, however many fucking mads
Oh no,
world.
that's simple. We know exactly it was just like some film, guy want to make a movie or something about, it sounded very educational, but it was like, why is there a footnote? And
Yeah.
why is there a footnote to that footnote? I'm like, y'all like, and you want to market this? This is not like sell the idea first before you. um, and so it's on that end, but also it's Florida, place I've never been, and I proudly say that as a film, as the producer of this movie. Um, but it is where the five civilized tribes started. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of knowledge, and it is talked about in some of your interviews and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, the Seminole people, the Chickasaw, the Cherokee,
My
Choctaw.
grandpa was
Yeah.
like, honestly, if you didn't know him and you looked at him, you would have probably guessed he was like almost full Native American, which his percentage was pretty high, but he carried the like genes hard where he had like
Oh
the
yeah,
dark hair, dark skin. You can see it in
yeah.
my great uncle in the movie. He has that sort of complexion and tone
Yeah,
and
well,
everything.
and its phenotype and complexion is interesting because the history of that, why they're called the civilized tribes, is because, I mean, this is not a controversial take anymore, but it is because of acceptance of slavery
Okay.
within and so there's a lot of inter generational mixing of African American, Native American, and then European American, all kind of
Yeah.
mixing in. So like for example, my grandfather, who's from Maryland, and his whole history, like him being Native, like very everyone's all light skinned and stuff like a lot of
Yeah.
but that's the thing. I think there's always a stereotype. They're like, oh, when I saw an Indian, I saw The Doors with Jim Morrison. That's the Indian I met, kind of
Right.
thing like that.
Right.
And it's true. I mean, but it's a very wide range in the
Yeah,
history of
yeah.
that. And I feel like that's something I thought was kind of special that I didn't know how much you were going to touch on that. But I thought it was cool that you had some relatives being like, hey, there's some graves back there. By the way, it's
Yeah.
all an Indian burial ground. We're just gonna clear everything. What you're on, what I'm on, it's all an Indian burial ground. There's not just like, yo, you didn't remove the bodies here, kind of moment, poltergeist.
Yeah, we
So,
visit a lot of graves during the movie.
yeah.
It's interesting the balance of life and death in the movie, I think, because there is a sort of yin yang going on where we do a lot of celebrating life, but we also do a lot of exploring loss or death, you know?
Yeah. Well, I
So,
think you're trying to find closure to something, and I think that's something also a lot of not just myself, but a lot of people dealing with grief start doing, and then that's when you start also exploring things. A lot of people go to, tarot readings and want to, open up, oh, I want to get a conclusion to something.
yeah,
I feel like that's what you're searching for. And in the end, I think y'all know is when you ask a question, you'll get an answer. It may not be the answer you get, and then you get more questions, kind of thing. Which
yeah,
I feel
no
like
doubt.
that's what you're in right now in your post production phase
Yeah,
on that
yeah,
end.
for sure.
Yeah. What are some takeaways at the end about now getting to actually finally show this?
Man, I hope people leave the theater wanting to explore their own family history, or to make sure they don't, miss an opportunity that maybe they will regret later, or to call somebody they haven't talked to in a while. I hope it really leaves people with that sort of emotional punch at the end.
Yeah.
Even though we do sort of end on the scary note, like you said, I do think there's a
Yeah.
there's a there's a sprinkle on top at the end of emotion where we kind of hook back.
Yeah.
So
So call your mama, even though I
that's
know it's
right.
tough. Mama be
Call
definitely
people,
Benji's.
tell them you love them. You
A
might
lot of
not get another
Benji's mama
chance.
is
You know?
not a person that it's very easy to talk to.
Yeah.
But it's I think that's reconnections there. I also feel like it's interesting. One of my favorite movies, again, like just sort of spiritually in line. Stranger Than Paradise, Jim Jarmusch's movie
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
1984, ends in Florida in a very sudden kind of way of like, oh wait, we're in Florida, and then this girl is supposed to get on a plane. There's a big mix up, and then someone's flying away to Budapest. And like, what are you gonna do in Budapest? And I feel like that ending right now for me, it's like okay, it's like, well, what is that now? Like
Yeah.
should make a phone call. Don't forget about people. We're
Yeah.
gonna have these, But I think that to me, and that I think it also relates back to ghosts, is that you come in with a question. I think you have these questions. You got some answers that are not the answers that you really wanted, or didn't get.
Yeah.
But then now you have more questions, and these questions will lead you on to, you know, again, more ghosts, more
Yeah,
thoughts on.
100%. And that's kind
Yeah.
of life for you, right? I don't think life ever gives you finite answers. At least not the ones you want, or
It does at times, but then it always leads to another. Okay,
right.
now you have this. Oh, I remember, yeah, like the first day I finally like got out of actually shooting something of my own and being exhausted and feeling great about it, and then of course post production taking like over a year on it and being like, why the fuck, something. It was a short
Right.
film. I'm very proud of it. Something that I'm still trying to work on. You saw the trailer,
Yeah, yeah, no.
or
I'm
which keeps
excited.
changing because I'm just like, okay, well, we shot this footage, but it's like, what can we really get? Like, should it all be what you saw? It might just
Right.
be that, and didn't just audio
Yeah.
over it.
Well, I mean,
Um,
I haven't seen it, but I listened to Terrell and Russ talk about it on Footage Foreplay. The undertone is a lot of audio heavy stuff, right? I haven't.
but I haven't seen it either. I hear that A24 is trying to do the Skidmarink route, like let's keep it minimal, so
Yeah.
minimal. But um, I don't know. I was going to. We were supposed to get it up Balboa, and we didn't get it. So I was just like, okay,
Well,
well, I'll get around.
Resonance, which we showed it off, is, I mean, there are visuals in that movie, but they
Mhm.
are not. They're not the people talking. Like there's people talking throughout the thing, and it's completely not, the same. You're
I
not
don't.
hearing the audio from the
What year was
visuals.
that one? Where was that from?
Of Seven, I think that's
There
Johannes
you go.
Skrinsfurthner who did that. That's
Oh,
his that's his second feature that we've shown three of his movies now.
oh,
Masking Threshold, is that the first one? I think it is.
yeah,
And then
from Austria,
Razonest,
the
that's
Austrian.
right. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
And then
gosh,
what was
yeah.
the new one called? Solvent.
Solvent,
Solvent
yeah.
was the
There was
new
a
one.
lot of
Yeah.
a lot of hot takes about that
Dude,
movie.
yeah, a hundred
Yeah,
percent. And there
yeah,
is on Letterboxd and online if you go
yeah.
and read the what people are saying about it. It's very like mixed. But I think that's the sign of good art. Like it should challenge you, but it should also make you think. And I think if you have that, I think if you're only making people mad or you're only getting praise, maybe there's less value to it. I like the idea of people being split on something because I think it means there's something there to actually think about.
So
or
you're gonna watch
meditate
The
on,
Bride? Do you
you
watch
know.
The Bride then?
I would like to. Yeah, I haven't yet, but
It didn't get to Mississippi yet.
not yet. We get stuff a little late down here, you know. Uh,
Got a little
but no,
crank wheel going.
for example, with the inverts, I think
Yeah.
some of my favorite
This is
reviews
your
to
short
read
film. Yeah.
was right. Yeah, the short film, the second. I guess it was the first like actual short film I did because the shorts I had done before that were all what I would consider like commercial shorts, like some Hurt Carvey stuff, where like the Unnamed Footage Festival said, "Hey, here's a like what we need, and we need you to make something for it." So I was kind of like doing prompts for those. But the
Yeah.
inverse was the first thing that I did entirely like that was my own fruition. And I think my favorite reviews to read and my favorite discussions to listen to at Film Fest were actually from people who were mixed on it or who didn't like it, you know, because I think I don't know, a lot of times when people like something, they don't say much. They just say they liked it. But when they don't
I get
like
the
it, they have
opposite.
more to say.
I usually get the person who will like it, and then I'll get the person that's like, "Hey, did you watch? Oh yeah, that was And then I'm like, or like, "Oh, sorry, man. No, this is the number one thing I got every time in LA. I still get it. That's why I'm just like, I'm like, oh, did you watch it? Oh yeah. Oh, I'll get around to it. I'm like, oh my God, like so many people, and then there's like people. I was like, I get it. We're all busy. It's like, but
after the Chattanooga screening of Inverts, Jeremy Gardner and his wife Taylor were
from
we were all
Battery.
That's right, yeah, one of my favorite movies. I love The Battery. We were all standing in front of a bar waiting to get in. It was full right then, and we were like next up, so we were just chilling outside, and we were talking about my short because they'd watched it earlier in the day, and it was like fun listening to them because there's one scene in particular in the short. I know it's not public, so a lot of people haven't seen it, but there's a scene in it where there's a real drone footage, and Taylor was upset that the drone footage was there, and Jeremy was kind of like, well, I think let's hear what Evan has to say, and like I think there's probably, I think if there's a reason for it, it's probably okay. So it was just interesting that I like thinking about like the notion that people
like
watching your work brings up a
yeah
conversation,
Yeah, I mean, there's that, and I think it's funny. Jeremy Garner, I met very briefly at Amoeba. I was like, "Hey, I just saw The Battery." He's like, "Oh, cool." I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, we just met. I'm out of here. This town sucks." And I'm like, in true fashion for a guy who made a movie for $8,000.
Well, hey, he left. He went to Florida, so
He did, and he made what's after midnight. Which,
I love that movie. Yeah, I like all three of them. I'm waiting for another one.
I would like to see more. Yeah, of The Battery with I think The Battery is very, very great.
How do you feel about Tex Montana?
I have kind of avoided
I love it too.
It's not a horror movie, so
it's not. No, well, some horrific stuff happens, but it is very comedy forward. But it's funny because he doesn't like found footage movies, and he made one.
Well, like I don't know. This is getting away from the ghosts. So real quick, so
We're talking about
Evan
the Ghost
Jordan,
of Sundance now, dude.
What was that?
We're talking about the Ghost of Sundance now.
Oh, well, he did die. He did die this year, this past year. So
he did. R.I.P. A real one, dude. Everybody go watch All Is Lost.
All is lost. The old man and the gun.
I mean, they've seen that. But they might have seen All Is Lost.
Oh, everyone saw. He almost got nominated. That was like the
but nobody talks about it. I fuck with that movie. He doesn't say a word. It's so fucking riveting.
Slam Dance. That's the thing. It's like, I mean, that's the breakdown. Is that like, I don't know. For me growing up in the '90s, everyone's like, oh yeah, Sundance is where you're at. Like, you don't have a name. No one knows who Evan Jordan is. No one knows who Ben Carver is. No one knows who Russell. What is his last name? Always Fisher. Fisher. Oh, there's some other guy named Russell.
Jesus. I can't wait to hear him give you shit about that.
He's not going to listen to it. He's already tuned out at this point. He's tuned out at this point.
No, but I do think that's kind of been always the stuff that I've been attracted to is the fringe, weird entertainment. Like I like big movies too, but I always feel like I get way more from these super abstract or weird or
I'm setting you up for an ego stroke right here. I'm setting up for an ego stroke right here because I'm your producer. So then it's like, Sundance is where it's at. And then of course you realize like, well, there's some big names that also really pulled that along in the 90s.
Yeah.
Some names that we can't mention anymore. And so and then also people just getting older. Like I said, the guy from Robert Redford died, in the more recent years, and then it's like there's this turn of events that happen around the late 90s, early 2000s, specifically with Trey Parker, Matt Stone, Cannibal the Musical. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden being like, hey, we no Sundance doesn't want us, but we're right next door. Let's put a festival down the street. Let's start Slam Dance. And Slam Dance becomes its own thing, becomes actually what Sundance wants to be, or was
Right.
was at one point. And then even that gets big.
Yeah.
That gets way big, like, and I feel like that was always what I was at the point when I was submitting stuff and trying to make a name. It's like you gotta just go Slam Dance. Like Sundance is just like you gotta have like five different, big names to like get you. And it's always like, whoever, is well, when pilot season still existed,
Yeah.
someone who's like a name that's still, or like, do the Tarantino route, like someone that was, a has been that now needs to come back,
Right.
but you gotta make it, and then the bidding
Which,
wars.
hey,
Yeah.
spoiler alert for the future. I want the next idea. I'm already working on the next thing, and that's my.
Until
I've got
you
a
got the
couple of
money.
those, dude.
Until
I've got
you
a
got
couple
the
of
money.
those
Yeah.
those ideas of bringing some people back who were like at the end of their thing,
Okay.
So,
You know,
but anyway,
well,
go ahead. I've cut you off twice now on the
I
ego
know,
stroke, and I really want it.
and then it's like, and then it shifts into, Austin film festivals. It's all about Austin. Austin's the place. It's not about Sundance.
It's
It's not about
happening
Slam
there right
Dance.
now, dude.
It's all about Austin and stuff like that. Oh yeah, and it's also about these horror film festivals and all these conventions are popping up. And then it's like, it's like, okay, like, oh, definitely, like I need to go there. These are the places where I feel like every movie that's playing is a movie that's made for me on some level.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting, around right before the pandemic, a film festival comes along named Unnamed Footage Fest that starts off from a podcast. And I've told this to Russell. It's like, and then it all of a sudden like, hey, what's this show movies that I want to see with my friends, even though these are not movies ever to be shown in a theater.
Yeah.
It's like on that end. And then, I was saying like number two is where I didn't see the first one. I wasn't there for the first one.
Yeah.
I had just moved back from to the Bay Area, and pandemic happens. All of a sudden, the 24-hour fest happens. All of a sudden, and then we get Evan Jordan coming in, and then we get all these other people, that have been, installed. All of a sudden, we're at number
Yeah.
9, and if you haven't looked at that poster, it's pretty fucking sweet.
Dude, I love it. I love it. That's
Um,
one thing Uncle Frank was saying when he was making the poster too,
Yeah.
was the whole like, dude, some of these movies, it's wild. I don't think any other film fests would be interested in them because they're just such, and I think he's wrong. I think the movies are great, but I also get his sentiment in terms of like our movie, for example, is so personal and so, but I think you just have to think about it in terms of what is it, You
Yeah.
can't think about it in terms of like, it's,
Well, and I think that's the other element that's at hand here. I mean, like, I think of Cuddly Toys as something that
yeah,
what blew my mind, because that movie was at an intersection in my life where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to school. I'm gonna calm down about. I'm trying to still try to make something of my own feature
yeah,
films. Even Russell's like, why did you stop making shorts? I was like, well, there was a short I made with Kansas that she was making the first big chunk of Cuddly Toys. That just
yeah,
everything that went wrong just went wrong. Even though like a bunch of people I'd worked with before on, it just kind of was like, hey, I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna make an effort of it. But and it was also the first time I actually got some talent. Like Kansas
right.
was known. And so it was like, so it was interesting. And then I'm doing F7 with y'all. And I'm like, Cuddly Toys? It finished? Where's she been? She disappeared. What's happening? And she was there, and it's you guys found it, and you found a place for something like that,
Yeah,
which is a film that it's a lot of like 20 years ago, Slam Dance, 30 years ago,
right.
Sundance would have played, but would not play today, like for various reasons. Even though I just think that it's just like they're just like, oh, well, there's just so much, and it's like Unnamed Footage Fest finds places like that for movies that, yes, they are good movies. It's just that either there's always an agenda
Right.
to these places as well. Like, oh, we want to theme it this way, or oh, so and so really is bringing this to the line, kind of. It's
Yeah.
the marketing of it. And I feel like you guys have an interesting like level of it. I think this video game and R8 and REG thing that's happening is like
Yeah,
another
ARG,
level
yeah.
within ARG. Sorry, it's just bringing a whole other different level
Dude,
that
yeah, I'm excited
to the
about
festival.
and you've seen it even longer than I have because I didn't come on board until 24 hour was the first time I ever attended one. But
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy just the amount of growth that's happened since then in terms of not only the amount of stuff we're showing and the amount of people who attend every year getting more, just also in terms of the amount of stuff we're doing for the festival and the stuff we're putting into it, So I'm stoked, dude. And I feel like, we got a
Yeah,
great team
I think we
and a good
started really
vision.
at the almost the same time because I did number two because I had something, a local
Yeah.
short, but I didn't stick around at the festival at all. And then three came in at interesting time. I think it was funny. It was right before the pandemic, so I was definitely in the mode of like, do I want to sit in a theater? Like, it's weird. As I've gotten older, like I
Yeah.
would be like, that's all I want to be is in a theater. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I love being in a theater. I love being a part of community. But I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I just want to be at the beach or just want to be out. If I have a chance to go do an adventure with someone, and that came right when that festival happened, right before. And I'm glad I went on that adventure, even though I missed out
Yeah.
on pretty much. I mean, I came for the opening night of three and then got my box, by the way. Excellent
Hell
box.
yeah. Hell yeah.
You
Shout out to
know,
Uncle Frank. The 3 boxes tight. I have all of them behind me. I've got even the ones I didn't attend, I have the boxes for. So,
yeah, but didn't you? I thought you did the box for. Don't you do the?
but not for 3. I
Oh,
do now, but
do
not for
now.
3.
That's right.
I
Yeah,
didn't
the first
yet
three
then.
are you, or
The
not
first
you?
3 were. Yeah, I think the first year was actually somebody else. And I think 2 and 3 are Uncle Frank.
Yeah, I've never
Or
seen a
maybe
box
3 and
for
5
one.
or something like that. And
Yeah.
then 6, I don't know if 1 had a box actually. I think 2
No,
was
no,
somebody
there's a
else.
box. It's just they're
Is there?
they're like the lost relic. They're
Maybe
like
so.
that's
Yeah.
what Russell's told me.
But then I
Um,
did 6, 7, 8, and then this year's
this year, yeah,
VHS
yeah.
boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just another level. But yeah, that's the big thing is that I'm like y'all. It's like and it's creating that conversation. I think funny enough, and this is totally a fluke that this happened in my backyard too. Like this, I went searching almost. I went searching around the world almost. I went to Mexico, went to the United States, I went to Europe. Looking for a festival like Unnamed Footage Fest. Like,
Hell yeah.
and it's just interesting that like that's. I'm very happy that it happened in the backyard.
Yeah.
During these very interesting times as well. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's just something that's interesting there. Compared to like, yeah, like I've done all the big festivals almost, except for the
Yeah.
ones that are like, well, these are Academy Award, and it's like, okay, well, I'll get to those. But a thing was also they were cheaper to get around. Like you could get tickets, you didn't have to. If
Yeah.
you were part of the industry, it would almost be like they wanted you to become. And now it's like I feel like the community that Unnamed Footage Fest has, I feel that I feel like is missing also as well. That was there when I first started going to festivals, and then also was quickly like, oh, you don't remember 10 years ago, kind of
Right.
thing. And I feel like that's interesting too, is that like, yeah, that's exciting at the end of it. So
Yeah, and that's one of the things that always drew me to UF when I first, went to the 24-hour just as a fan and attended it. I had heard about it on Twitter like 6 hours before it started, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'll do this." We're
we're
all
ready for
inside
another hole in
anyway.
the head. We did it before. We did it 6 months
I didn't
before
know.
you guys.
I didn't
We
hear,
did
but nobody
6
tweeted.
days
Nobody that I
online.
followed that I saw posted it. Or I
Yeah.
probably would have done that one too.
I-
And
that's right.
seeing
Yeah,
seeing the original content made with it and stuff, like it was
yeah.
clear to me immediately that they were doing their own thing entirely. They weren't worried about like, like what's the standard for these things. They were just like, let's try this and see if it works. And that's just the kind of, I love that kind of art in general of not knowing what's going to happen.
You
just
should have
doing
came to Mr. Holehead's Warp Dimension Inner Tubing Fest for 6 days, dude. You missed all the characters. Like you kind of seen a little bit of the characters. Like it was an insane thing, but we just didn't do like no breaks. We just kind of, I mean, we did breaks throughout
Yeah.
like but it was interesting. But I feel like again, it's all of us at a certain age doing this. I feel like that's another thing too, is that you just find these waves, especially like film festival crowds, where we are actually, you guys are younger,
Yeah. I'm
younger
the
than what
baby
you
of the
actually
group,
see
of
with,
the UF group.
yeah,
I'm the youngest
yeah,
one. And
yeah.
I'm 30, about to be, well, what fucking month is it? I'm about to be 32 next month.
Next month,
So,
yeah, yeah. I'll be 40,
and
at
I'm the
month,
baby of the group.
At
So,
the end of the
yeah, I
year,
think
I'll be
that's the
40.
age that around most of the UF team is, or
Yeah.
around like Russell's age, around 40. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing I think that's again like searched all around the world, showed shorts, did these things, Still don't know how to, I'm grateful that you finally showed me a rough cut.
Hell yeah. No, I think
I,
you're going to be excited about the grade too, because I think
oh, yeah.
like how Anthony Leroy, to shout him out, is who did the color grade. Our friend who did Bum and Worm Burner
Cool.
and all, the Tad Nightingale series. Because this might this current cut could very well end up being the director's cut, and maybe we make a
Yeah.
different cut to sell. Who knows? You know what happens?
Or you
after
could
we
be like
start
Robbie
screening,
Banifich
so.
and make it 20 minutes longer.
Yeah, I could make 27 different cuts like Robbie Banfitch too.
And then I just took my name off at that point. I'm like, no, I don't.
Yeah, what's the fake
Just-
name everybody uses?
No, just keep the
director
Warp Visions label. But I'm like, yeah, that's.
name?
Just send me a paycheck when you sell it.
But I like this version, so I'm hoping everybody else likes this version too, and it ends up being the main one. But if it doesn't, maybe it's the director's cut. You know, we'll see what happens. This in you can, but the plan is to, after I've got a list and a bunch of contacts and set up a Florida screening tour of the film.
Okay.
Because I think we'll have a good, I think there's an automatic draw there because it's in the state it's filmed in, so we'll get a lot of good local attendance. And then I'm hoping that, and I talked to my buddy Kyle at Utopia. I don't know if you listened to the podcast episode with him. Kyle Greenberg, he's like the acquisitions guy at Utopia.
I know of Utopia, but I haven't heard that interview. So
okay, yeah. He's a homie, and he's got a short plan this year, French lessons, which I really like. I love what he's doing with the in-world camera stuff too. We're kind of played in the same sandbox, you know. But I talked to him, and he thinks this is a good strategy. But I wanna do the Florida screening tour, hit like 10 cities or something, and I can rent a car and get there. Like, that's no problem to like go. I'll sleep in the fucker if I have to, and do like a Florida tour and try to drum up press on the Florida tour, right? And then hopefully the press from the Florida tour, we can roll that into screening nationwide, you know.
Okay, yeah. If you definitely, I mean, there's definitely places I know.
And I do have other contacts at other fests. I know we've got it in at Envoumont, the French In-World Camera Festival, so it'd be great to play there if they take it. Chattanooga, I've submitted it. We'll have to see if they take it. But there's a few others I'd like to submit to, too. But, yeah, I think we could get something going here, and I think the Florida tour will help. I think that will really help, you know, get some reviews out there, get some people talking about it a little bit, which I'm excited by the response we've gotten so far online, just posting about it, you know. So
we got Evan Jordan here from Florida, man, coming to you from actually also Warp Visions produces the podcast, produced this feature film, Provoking Ghosts. Evan Jordan, what do you got to say to these ghosts right before we're about to leave?
Well, I think the important thing to note, I know we focused on the ghosts and the horror stuff and but I do think there's a lot of other like filmic DNA in here in terms of, it's sort of got a puffy chair. That was one of my big inspirations, where it's like this couple going on a trip, you know, and like it feels rocky. You don't know how things are going to turn out. It feels like it could go either way by the end.
Big puffy ghost.
That's right. Yeah, people.
Stay
I don't know. I like
Marshmallow
movies
Man.
where people talk to each other, you know, and I like oral storytelling in terms of like some of my.
So before it cut you off, but I knew that was happening. I was like, don't talk about the puffy chair. You're gonna talk for 5 minutes now. Even though it is always a good center point. It's 20 years old this year as well.
Yeah.
You know, it was definitely the movie of like, some people were like, I thought it was funny when it first came. I think Baghead came out like shortly after. And Joe Swansburg's
was a crazy Sundance bidding war for Baghead. That was a big
puffy ghost. Yeah, buddy. Well, you know, stay warped. There you have it. Me and Evan Jordan, that is, talking about ghosts and movies and film festivals, all the likes. And that is our end of, well, as I keep saying, chapter 2 on here now. Officially trying to figure it out. Chapter 2, part 2, you know, second part, second sequence, etc. But thanks for tuning in. You got this far here into ghosts. Please check out also our Patreon, Warp TV. It helps actually get a little change to keep this thing going, because definitely got little parts here and there. Some great announcements. Also, we got our monthly show out at the Balboa Theater, also the Balboa Theater podcast, which you can find on Spotify. Keeping it here on the YouTube free these days. You can also find the Get Warped podcast also on our Patreon. Again, Patreon Warped TV. It used to be called the Warp Dimension TV, but we've kind of shortened it down. a bit. Might change some other names, but still keeping it all warped. We got chapter 3 coming in. Pretty close. I think finding the rhythm, when to drop these things as well. I think with chapter 1 being up with Kai and I, and that's kind of will be probably the structure, figuring out what to get warped here. Doing the first episode, I think, with Kai and I, and if we have a special guest with him as well, and then moving on to then a few more chapters. See how long they go. I mean, the original plan for this was not to be 3 chapters, as we get chapter 3 going on that. Also, drops will be every other Freaky Friday, I think, will be, to keeping it a bi-monthly. Definitely, it's good to take breaks as well. A lot of stuff, big warp world out there, as is said. And but Evan, it's got Florida, man, as I like to say, and that'll be coming hopefully in the coming year on a tour in Florida. Get some theaters out here in California where we're based, so get some bi-coastal action. And thanks everyone, for tuning in, listening in. If you got any comments, you know where to find me on the socials at Warp VHS. And we'll be back. Freaky Friday drop. That's the announcement. I think the plan is, drop on the Freaky Friday every other week. So you finished up chapter 2 here with me and Evan Jordan talking about ghosts. A lot of Ouija talk. More Ouija talk coming next chapter as well. We will have Sean Nichols Lynch, filmmaker of This House is Totally Haunted. And stay warped out there. Thanks for listening.